Good morning, everybody. Morning. Good morning in Vicksburg, Mississippi. My name is David Pittman. I'm the director of the Geotech Instructions Lab. I also want to say good morning to Champaign, Illinois. Champaign, can you see us? Can you hear us? Oh, that's okay. How about Alexandria, Virginia? Can you hear us? All right, hey, all right, hey. How about Coal Regions Lab, Hanover, New Hampshire? Can you hear us? No. It's too cold. How about Champaign, Illinois?
That is Champaign right
there. That is Champaign. All right, good. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to get all the sites connected eventually. So I want to welcome you to the first ever ERDIC-wide session on human capital strategy and career management. And really what we're doing is we're taking advantage of Dr. Jim Hearn, who you'll meet here in just a second. Jim Hearn is a senior executive in SES with the Northwestern Division. And I saw Jim Hearn give this little session a couple years ago at the CP18, Career Program 18 conference. The Corps has this about every year, actually. Mm-hmm. And he did this wonderful session talking about career management and breaking the glass ceiling. And I said, man, we got to get this guy to come here to ERDIC. And so we managed to wick our meeting here, and you took a good tour of ERDIC yesterday and seeing a lot of our technologies. But we broke out this hour, and I'm glad you came for this hour because he's going to talk about how to manage your career. You're going to love this. A little bit about Jim. He's had an interesting career himself. He spent 14 years as an educator and administrator at a community college. So he's a teacher at heart. Then he started working with the Army in the IMCOM, Installation Management Command. So started his career sort of as a customer for the Corps, then got on with the Corps, worked his way up to the top, and now he's a senior executive. So he did something right along the way. He could very possibly be the most educated guy in the Army Corps of Engineers, okay? He has 3 master's degrees, and he'll correct me if I get this wrong. He has a master's in strategic studies from the Army War College, an MBA from Boston University, and a master's degree in
Education and Counseling.
Education and Counseling from University of Southern California, and also a doctorate in Leadership Organizational Development from University of Southern California. I mean, how many degrees do you have? That's a lot of degrees. So nobody more qualified to talk to us about this topic than Dr. Jim Hearn. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Jim, thank you so much, and welcome to ERDIC.
Thanks, Dave. Again, welcome everybody. Hear me okay? Welcome everybody. It's an honor for me to be here. The tour that I had yesterday of the facilities, especially the ones that are doing work for the Northwestern Division, were absolutely inspiring to me. I don't know how you could not be proud of working for the Corps of Engineers and seeing the work that goes on here. I think it's absolutely phenomenal, and it's just been a great experience to me, and I'm going to be singing your praises whenever I do my talks around the country. And I'm talking back my Northwestern Division. Yeah. You wonder why I do this kind of talk. I call it kind of a Catholic thing over there. We got to confess all the time. And I'm confessing about all the mistakes that I've made in my career. And Dave said, yeah, I rose to the top of the thing over there. And you say, well, how do you mean you made mistakes in your career? I probably could have done it 15 years sooner had I planned my career out. I really didn't do a very good job. And basically that's the thesis of why I started doing these classes, is that most people don't plan their careers. Their careers just happen to them. And some people are lucky and some people aren't lucky. We apply for jobs just because it's there, not because we thought about it as the actual career progression that we need to get where we want to go, because we don't know where we want to go. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We look about, for those of you that have read to your kids over there, Lewis Carroll, the Alice in Wonderland, when Alice is talking to the Cheshire Cat and she says, I'm lost. He says, where do you want to go? She says, I don't know. He says, any road will take you there. And that's kind of the thesis of what I'm saying right now, is that without a plan, you can just meander around. And sometimes you might hit the right track. You just might be in the right place at the right time. And we'll talk about luck a little bit, because luck will play a lot in your career. Being in the right place at the right time and being able to take advantage of that luck when it comes out there. The other reason I do this, obviously in our positions, we sit on a lot of selection panels. So we wind up looking at a lot of resumes. And we wind up sitting on a lot of interviews. And we see a lot of mistakes. And what I'm trying to do is kind of give you some insight from us that sit on these things all the time of how to make your presentations better. Because with a little bit of work that you can do, you can set yourself so far above the competition that's out there. And what you're always trying to do is how do you separate yourself from the competition? And working on that, whether it's diversity of experience, depth of experience, breadth of experience, specialized experience, how do you separate yourself? You know, because when I'm looking at resumes, and I have 50, and I boil them down to the last 5, somehow they're all pretty similar. Most of those people have done the exact same things. But how do you separate yourself from the other 4? And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about. How to make yourself as marketable as you can possibly be. All right, here's what we're going to be talking about today, who I am. And you might say, well, why do we want to talk about that? And I think you'll get a kick out of that. What do you want in a career? How would you get there? What tools do you need? We'll talk about resume writing and interviewing techniques. Again, those are the 2 main things that you need to get that opportunity, to get that job. What do you do when you get there? So you want to be an SES, and then any questions that you might have. The straight line is what you all believe your career is going to be. The jagged line below that is what really happens, and that's why we all drink. So what we're trying to do is straighten that red line out a little bit for you. Okay. Who I am. Why I say that is if you don't know who you are, what you are like, not who you are as a person, what you like personality-wise, we may take jobs that are not suited for us. Not that we can't do them, but they wear you down. How many people have taken the Myers-Briggs type indicator? Great test over there, because it really does, not test, but assessment tool. Because it really does give you an idea of what your personality is like and what you like and what you don't like. Now, that doesn't mean you can't function outside of that. But as I said, it does wear you down when you have to operate outside of your normal comfort zone. So if you can marry up what your comfort zone is with your job, then you have a very good situation. For example, if you are an extrovert, you like to be around people, you get your energy through people, probably the last job that you should be looking for is one that locks you behind a computer for 8 hours a day. You're not going to get that intellectual stimulus. Not that you can't do it. I've done that before. I've done a job, basically, I was a budget analyst where I was just managing stuff. It's the kind of thing, though, I had to get out of it, though, for a while. I had to go out and talk to people. You know, and it's just, so you got to really know, is this the right fit for me? And the other way around, if you're an introvert, you know, the last thing you probably want is a job where you're out in the public every day. Again, that drains you. Not that you can't do it, but it does drain you. It takes a lot of effect on you. I've seen people fired from jobs because of just those kinds of things, because they had the wrong match on there. They couldn't handle that situation. So really understanding what you are as a person is really important. I do another class sometimes called Managing Your Boss. And again, based on kind of the Myers-Briggs concepts. You know, if you're a boss, if you don't understand how your boss, what kind of personality he is on a Myers-Briggs type, you don't know how to communicate. And communication is so important. For example, if your boss is an introvert, the last thing you want to do is stop him in the hallway and say, I got a great idea. Because he'll never hear it. Introverts require time to process data. And so if you just stop him and say, I got a great idea, here's nothing. And you might feel rejected because of that. But it's not because he didn't like what you said. He never had time to process it. So understanding how to communicate, how you communicate, and how he communicates is so important. I had a job one time. I was a community manager in Dexheim, Germany. I ran a base in Germany. And I had a number of NCOs who worked for me. And if you haven't gathered by now, I'm an off-the-scale extrovert. You know, I just love being around people. And one of the characteristics of an extrovert is they think out loud. And I remember I had these NCOs around me, and I sit there and I said, okay, we ought to paint this building one of these days. Within an hour, they're slapping paint on the wall. And I said, ooh, I got to watch what I say. And I think it's a matter of learning your personality and how you work with your people. Because you may be just thinking something, thinking it out loud, and suddenly you have a whole organization operating because of that. You know, so it's a matter of knowing yourself, knowing how you function, knowing how you operate, how you handle data. You know, if you're a sensor, Myers-Briggs type, you got to feel it, touch it, or see it. You know, very difficult dealing with disjointed information. You know, how do you communicate what kind of job that was best fits those kinds of things? You know, and again, as I said, not that you can't operate outside of that comfort zone, but it becomes challenging. So understanding yourself, getting a good picture of yourself is really important to start this whole process out and really think, what kind of jobs do I like? What am I passionate about? And if you can marry that passion with your job, what a great relationship that is there. Your passions with your job. What are your priorities? Our priorities change many times, you know, throughout our careers. You know, you get a job and you're excited about that job and you're doing everything to get ahead right away. Suddenly you find yourself, you have 3 kids, or you have aging parents, or you're trying to get a master's degree at night. That sucks a lot of the life out of your system. And so you can't give that 110% to your job. That's fine. But don't expect a meteoric rise in your career if you have other priorities at this time. And our priorities switch. Maybe when your kids are in school, you know, suddenly you have the time then to dedicate back to the job again. Or suddenly you compete the Ironman triathlon, you finish it, now you're back to work again. You know, all these kinds of things have different priorities out there, and it's a matter of assessing what is your priority at this in time. If it's your job, then focus on that job and go after those opportunities that are out there. But if you're not focusing on that right now, then don't expect to be moving very quickly. Not that you're not doing a good job and everything, but it's just that 110% that you have to give sometimes. So understanding your priorities is very important on top of what your personality is. What are your dreams and what are your passions? Joe Van Antwerp, when he was the head of the Corps of Engineers, constantly talked about that. What is your passion? You know, and I see, as I had my tour of verdict yesterday and later on today, you know, the passion that people show in their jobs here is just absolutely amazing to me. You know, to be able to marry up these things that you learn with the incredible work that you're doing, you know, that it is not just the work for the military, it's work that is recognized throughout the world. You know, what better situation to be in? You know, I think about my life over there. Had I known much of what I know right now about the Corps of Engineers and things like this, I would have had a whole different career path probably. This is something that I think is really important. How many people know what SWOT means? Okay. It's a term that's normally found in strategic management. It's the way an organization looks at itself. It does an assessment. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what it will do is it'll say, okay, what are our strengths as an organization? You know, what are our strong points? What is our things that are niches? What is our weaknesses? You know, is it our workforce? Is it technology? What are our weaknesses that are out there? What opportunities do we see for our organization? And then what threats do we see against our organization? Well, we can do a personal SWOT analysis also. And I think that, to me, on top of understanding what our personalities are, is the next most important thing. When you're saying, if I want to get ahead, what are my strengths that I can sell to my prospective employer? You know, what are my strong points? Is it my education? Do I have a doctorate? Do I have a specialized skill? Is it breadth or is it depth? And maybe you want to emphasize one or the other. You know, is it a diverse background? Is it very specialized? Have I worked in a lot of different locations, a lot of different organizations? You know, what are my strengths that I can then sell? What are my weaknesses is probably even more important. You know, what things would they use to knock my application out? It's a matter of taking that, what are my weaknesses, and how can I address those weaknesses? And developing that plan to address those things is kind of how it fits in this overall plan for how do I want to get ahead. And what I mean by that, when as late as, I guess, around the year 2000, I didn't even know what an SES was. Had no idea. I'd never met one. And at that time over in Europe, in IMA, IMCOM, at that time it was IMA, now it's IMCOM, started with regional directors. And the regional director for Europe was an SES. That was the first time I really met an SES. And I didn't work for him, but I worked with him because I was one of the regional directors for one of the ASG directors for MWR. And it still didn't register with me that this is something that I want to aspire to or anything like that. Never even thought about it. Then I got on with the Corps of Engineers in Los Angeles District. And I just loved my time with the Corps of Engineers. I started with them. And that time, 2012 was just starting, USACE 2012. And Dick Thompson was the commander at that time, and he said, I want you to be our lead in that. So I got an opportunity to really learn more and more about the Corps and where the Corps was going. And I worked with Steve Stockton, who was the SES in South Pacific Division at that time. And so I kind of learned a little bit more about what an SES was, but still had really no idea that I wanted to aspire to anything like that. But it was interesting. The XA for the commander in Los Angeles District and the secretary, they cornered me one day and said, you would be a good SES. And I said, I would? I really just never even thought about that. But they got me thinking. And I did what I would call a SWOT analysis. All right, what are my strengths? Good academic background, pretty good. Diverse experience. I worked in a lot of different organizations, which was what was looked for in a senior leadership. Yeah, they want to see people with a lot of broad background. I said, okay, I got that. I looked at, all right, what are my weak points? Weak points would be I didn't have a lot of project management experience. And one thing they were looking for was senior service schools, the War College, National War, one of the senior service colleges for the military. So I said, okay, I got to take care of those two weaknesses if I want to have a chance, because they're deal breakers if I don't have them. So I talked to my boss, I'm interested in applying to the War College, would you back me? Absolutely. So I did my application and I was accepted. Then I said I need project management experience. So I went to my boss again. I was the RM at that time. And I said, I'd like to get into project management. He said, do you have any positions in PPMD that are open right now? And he said, yeah, the assistant chief has been open for quite some time. Why don't you take that job? And so I went in and became the assistant chief for about 8 months prior to going to the War College. And so I got a chance to kind of work with all the PMs that were out there. The DPM was a great guy, Brian Moore. He was great politically. He understood all the political staffers and all the local staffers and stuff. He hated the internal stuff. He hated dealing with the PMs. So I said, I'll do the internal stuff, you do the external stuff and teach me. So we worked that relationship out. So I kind of got a lot of project management experience. I did the year at the War College. When I came back to Los Angeles District, I ran our interagency international program. And I started doing some actual projects, too. In fact, I did one with working with ERDIC, actually, at Searle out at Fort Irwin, California. And so I got project management experience. I got program management experience in project management. And I kind of checked that block that I said, okay, they're not going to reject me now because I have this. And then from that, I was able to actually put a good packet together and eventually be accepted as an SES. But it was that SWOT analysis that really helped me figure out what things I needed to do to fix if I was going to be successful. And it's being brutally honest. You've got to be brutally honest and look at yourself and say, what do I need to do? Is it my education? Do I need to get a master's degree? Do I need to get an advanced degree? Do I need a degree in a different subject? What is it that I need that's going to separate me, that's going to make them not reject me? Education, is it your training? Is it something that you need to do that you just, in your specialized area, you don't have enough experience in? Is it diversity of jobs? Are you mobile? Can you move around? When I talk to a lot of our districts that are out there, if a person wants to be the DPM, the head civilian for a district, there's only one job they can apply to. But if they're mobile, there are 44 jobs they can apply to. So mobility in your career plays a big thing, where you can go, where the opportunities are. And are you adaptable? Can you change? Can you move to different locations? Because there are different cultures out there. Many of our organizations, even district to district, have different cultures. And you got to understand the culture of the organization and the place you're going. Organization and locational culture. I had a gal that talked to me in Portland. She worked for the Portland district. She came to me one time. She said, I love my job. I hate Portland. If you know Portland, the motto of Portland is keep Portland weird. And they work at it every day. We have naked bicycling night. I mean, it's weird. But she was a very conservative individual. And that environment she didn't feel good, that environment. You don't realize when you apply for a job, you're buying the culture of the organization and the culture of the place you live. So you got to make sure you understand and you like that. And you can deal with it. How's your job performance? You know, do you have a good job? And you compare yourself to the people around you. Are you competitive? If you're not, how do you fix that? Do you get some interim ratings over there that you can offset maybe one bad one that you had out there? Networks and contacts, we will talk about that throughout this entire thing. Contacts, people who know you, people who can vouch for you, is so important to your career. I guarantee it. Because the more people that know you, the more people that can vouch for you, the better off you are going to be. I guarantee you when you walk into an interview and you know most of the people on the panel, it makes you feel a little more confident. If you win it, you know nobody, it's like the Inquisition. You know, so networks and contacts are absolutely critical to your career. Does your career feed your passion? A lot of this is just an abbreviation over there. Does it, again, as I said, if you can marry up what you're passionate about with your job, with your organizational vision, your organizational goals, what a better marriage you can possibly have. Because then every day you're coming to work doing something you love for an organization that loves you doing that. Can I picture myself? And this is something that people don't really try to do. Can you picture where you want to be in 5, 10, 15, or 20 years? If you can't picture it, then how can you go there? You know, I'm the kind of person, when I have to solve a problem, I have to visualize it. Unless I can visualize a problem, I cannot remotely solve that thing. And I'll sit there and I'll stare at a blackboard forever until it starts taking some kind of shape that I can picture a solution. Same thing should be for your career. You know, if you're an intern right now, maybe you're a senior intern just finishing over there, and you say, okay, in 5 years, I would like to be a team lead in this section. You know, maybe in 10 years, I want to be a section chief. You know, in 15 years, I want to be the branch chief. You know, and then in 20 years, division chief, the lab chief. Okay, if I want to see that progression out there, what things do I have to do to get there? And that's where you start the makings of a plan. And I said, back to my original thesis, most people don't do that. They get to be a division chief, a lab chief, not because they thought about it when they were an intern. It's just because things fell into place. But you can influence that, and that's the whole purpose of what I'm saying here. If you take an activist approach, you can improve your odds quite a bit. Concentrate on breadth or depth. ERDIC is kind of a little bit different than most of the places that I go, like in the districts that are out there, because you guys are scientists and engineers. You are solving very complex problems. Depth of experience is very important here at ERDIC. But, and Dave and Reed and I were talking last night, as you move up in an organization, I look at your career as kind of a funnel. It's like this. It's very narrow. The technical part down here is where you're getting the depth of experience in your chosen field. But as you move up, it starts going like this. And breadth becomes more and more important. When I was at the War College, Gerald Casey was the Chief of Staff of the Army, and he came and he spoke to us, and I asked him a question. I said, what do you look for in your senior leadership? And he said, I want a pentathlete. If you know what a pentathlon is, it's a multi-stage event. And he said, I want people that can do a lot of different things. I don't need a one-dimensional person. I need to put you where I need you, not where you feel comfortable. So as you move up, it becomes more and more of the breadth. How does this whole thing fit together? How does this connect with that? You know, so by having experience in this and experience of that, you can make those relationships. And so as you move up, when you start getting to the 12 and the 13 level, it starts going more and more like this. And when you get to the 15 level, it's way out here because you're looking at more of the strategic realm. You know, what's going on out there as you become a manager. Not that, you know, many of you that are staying the straight science path, that's a different story. But when you become that branch chief, when you become that division chief, then you're doing a lot more administrative stuff. You're doing a lot more planning of the workforce. You're doing a lot more moving of people around. You're not doing technical stuff as much. So having that breadth of experience as you move up in your career is important. Try new things. Try new things. You can always reinvent yourself. I've done it many times. My wife just goes crazy. She says, how do you do it? How do you just take up a new job and do it? I said, I love new things. I love learning new stuff. You know, it's a matter of then, but then I know this, I know that. People say, well, how did you know that? Well, I did that because I did this job over here, I knew that. You know, and they just think, how did you, that's great. You know, you brought all these other skills that we don't have. Does your career field have a prescribed path? Many people that are in a CP18 program, you know, you can go to your website and you can see, here's what I should be doing throughout my career. That's why it's important to be talking to, to your supervisor and stuff. How do I fit all the things? Because sometimes it's a little narrower than it likes to be. There should be sometimes. You know, it doesn't deal with the breadth of experience as much as I would like to see it. You know, maybe I should take a job over here for a year. Maybe I should do an interagency transfer for 6 months where I'm getting experience working with EPA or working with Bureau of Reclamation or something like that. Again, this whole interagency work is really important right now. Again, because everything we do, basically we work with other agencies. And how we can show that we can get along in that environment makes us more marketable. So if you look at your path, how do I fit? What courses should I be taking? What job should I be having if I want to go on that path? I had a course many, many years ago, and the guy talked about getting ahead, promotion in an organization. Three main areas: competence, image, and context. And he threw it out to the class and said, what do you all think, you know, each one of those is worth? And most people said, about, you know, 1/3 each. You know, it's probably the way it breaks down. He said, no. Competence is 10%. And everybody goes, what do you mean competence is 10%? That's impossible. It can't be 10%. Well, it is. Because when you boil down those 50 resumes to the last 5, the difference is only 10%. You got a master's, you have a master's plus 15. You got 10 years of experience, you have 11 years of experience. The difference is only 10%. So, again, you don't want to miss out on that part, but that's the only leverage you have with that. Image is 20%. When you walk in to an interview, you are not just being interviewed for that job. You're being interviewed to see how you fit in that organization. How would you represent that organization? So your image, the image that you brought in by your reputation, and the image that you brought in by your presence out there is 20%. 70% is contacts. And I don't mean the old boy network. I'm talking about who can vouch for you. And as I said, I got 50 resumes. I boiled them down to the last 5. The last 5 look pretty much identical. Somebody walks by and says, hey, I worked with Mary Jones. She was one of the best teammates I've ever had on this program. Top of the stack. Somebody I trusted vouched for that person. And those are the kind of things, that's why I say, if you have an opportunity to be on a task force, if you have an opportunity to do a developmental assignment someplace else, you're extending your network, extending your contacts. You never know when you will need one of those people or when that person can help you. I'll tell you a story. How I got with the Corps of Engineers. I think it was absolute serendipity. You all know that Gerald Tom Bostic has been nominated to be a new Corps of Engineers. I've known Tom since he was a major. My wife taught his son. And so he was a 1-star in 2003. And he was at Fort Hood, Texas. I was in Belgium, in Shape, Belgium. I happened to be in Heidelberg, Germany for a meeting on Campbell Barracks, which is one of the bases in Germany. And they have a hotel there. And I'm walking to my hotel, and I hear my name called out at a distance, and it's Tom Bostic. And so hi, Tom, how you doing? How's the family? Blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, I might be joining your profession. He said, what do you mean? I said, I applied for a job with the Corps of Engineers in Los Angeles. And he said, oh, Los Angeles. He said, is that Dick Thompson, the commander there? I said, yeah, he's the commander there. He said, he was the best man at my wedding. I'll call him. I mean, talk about luck, talk about serendipity. But also, it's somebody who knew me, who knew my capabilities, that could vouch for me. And that's what I say, building context, building networks, building people that can vouch for you, that can say, I would work with that person anytime. That's what you want to do. So don't hesitate to not take those opportunities to show off who you are to other people, because you're building that network that's important. All right, a plan. And I, as I just kind of said with that thing over there, be ready to take advantage of luck. Luck will play a lot in your career. You said, all right, I want to be the section chief. My boss is going to retire in 3 years. I know I need a PE for that job, but I have another 3 years to get that. Saturday night, he hits the lottery. Says, I'll see you. I'm history. Are you ready to take advantage of that opportunity to just avail itself? If you didn't get the PE, you're out. So are you ready? Are you preparing yourself that when that opportunity comes up, you're ready to take advantage of it? You never know. We just selected an SES to take care with Anderson in Northwestern Division. It was one of those deals. There were very few applicants this last time. You never know. Sometimes there are 50 applicants, and then you're kind of, my chances are 1 in 50. Other times, they're 1 in 4. You never know where luck's going to play, where people don't apply, they don't see the announcement, they don't do whatever. So being able to be ready to take advantage of those situations is really important. Again, education. If you have an opportunity, and you guys here are much more highly educated than most that I deal with. I tell people in the districts that are out there, once you get to the GS-13, you better have a master's degree. Again, why? Because when you have 50 applicants and you look for any reason to discriminate, without a master's degree, I don't need you. Again, not because you have a master's degree, but it shows me what kind of person you are. You took an advantage of this opportunity. You stuck with this program to get a master's degree. That's why people want bachelor's degrees a lot of times. Not because of the skills you learn in getting a bachelor's degree, but it shows you stuck with the program for 4 years. And so this tells me something about you when you go after these educational opportunities. If you did it on your own, you did it at night, that shows me also something more about you, that you're willing to invest in yourself. And those kind of things, again, me as a person looking at a resume says, oh, I'm interested in this person. They're willing to go out on the limb on their own. Training. Developmental assignments, we talked about that, getting known, getting those opportunities that are out there, getting diversity of experience. And the CES courses, the Civilian Education System courses are very important to you. They're becoming more and more important. Now, many of you here have different career programs because of the science and technology system that you're in. But most of the people that I work with in the districts, are just the regular open GS system. We are the Army Corps of Engineers, whether you like it or not. We are the Army Corps of Engineers. And the Army likes to make us be aware of that sometimes. And what they're doing right now is they're making the CES courses, whether it's the foundation course, the basic course, the intermediate course, or the advanced course, mandatory for certain benefits that we have out there. For example, if you want to attend the Harvard seminar, the 1-month Harvard seminar, you must have the intermediate CES course. If you want, now they're saying now, I've heard this rumor out there, I've seen it on draft documents, if you want to be a GS-13, you have to have the intermediate course. They're making it mandatory, again, because these courses expose you to the big picture of what's out there. How the Army runs, how you fit in the whole thing. And so they want you to know those kinds of things. They're super leadership courses also. They really are interesting. They're a break from your normal technical routine. They give you the overall picture of how the Army runs and how you fit in the whole thing. Location and getting known. I've told people not to accept jobs that are promotions because I say, where do you go from there? Where does that job lead you? That's a dead-end job. You'll not be seen by anybody. If you need to be seen to progress, you don't want a job that locks you in one location. Certain locations, there are a lot of things. Like here, you got ERDIC, you got the district, and you got the division, all in one location. That's a lot of opportunities that are available to you. Other places like Walla Walla, there's just one little district there. Not a lot of opportunities. You have to go someplace totally different if you want to go and get ahead. So location is very important to pick. Where is this going to take me if I go there? Contacts and mentors. We'll talk about this a little bit when we get to interviewing techniques. Don't ever think you're owed a position. I don't care if you've been the acting director in something for 6 months and you think I'm a lock for this position. Don't ever think that. I have seen more people go down because of that attitude. I'll tell you a story. My wife's niece lived in England for many years. Her father was a university professor from the States, started a branch in England of the college that he worked for. So she grew up in the English education system. She went to Oxford 4 years, London School of Economics, and worked for the BBC. She actually rose probably to the top 10 in BBC. And she wanted to apply for the job of BBC Television, director of BBC Television. And she thought she was a shoo-in for it. Someone else took a month off to prepare for the interview. They had a vision statement. They had a detailed plan of every month for the first year they were going to be in the job. They got the job. I mean, she thought she was owed the job. She got a little hubris in there. And, again, lost the job. Actually, it turned out eventually she got picked up by the Discovery Channel. They gave her a lot of money to work for them. She came back and actually got the job BBC Television Director. But it took, it was an interim, she didn't treat it seriously. You know, she thought, I'm a shoo-in, this is easy, I don't have to prepare. You always have to prepare. You got to think, this is the most important 30 minutes of my life. I got to treat it that way. Mobility, as I said already, if you're not mobile, there's basically one job you're going after. If you're mobile, there's like 44 jobs you can go after. And then the kind of tools that you need, resume, interviewing skills, we'll talk about those, awareness, exposure. The reading and writing skills, you know, and speaking skills are really important as you move up. If you don't like public speaking, join Toastmasters, you know, because you are required more and more to do presentations. And it may never get easy. It can get easier. And the more confident you get, the more easier it becomes. All right, resumes. I have seen my share of crappy resumes. And as I said, if I have 50, I'm looking for any reason to throw your resume out. Just think about that. If you are serious about getting a job, that is the most important document in the world. Shouldn't you take the time to make sure it expresses everything that you want in the best fashion possible? Not just throw something down, oh, they understand, they know me. They'll read into this. No, people don't read into it. They read what you put on that paper. Don't be modest, but don't lie. People come to me sometimes and say, oh, I don't like to brag about myself. Clear and simple. The resume is a marketing document. And what you are marketing is yourself. You have to treat it that way. If you did something well, tell people you did it well. Use facts, use figures, use examples. You know, it is a marketing document. You want people to say, oh, I want to read more about this person. Highest to lowest. Some people ramble. They go all over the place on their document. Yeah, again, as I said, if I'm reading the first couple of sentences and you haven't told me anything, you're gone. When you look at a job description and you're applying for, you're looking at a job announcement, it's got, you know, a paragraph about this much of what they're looking for. It's there for a reason. And usually it's in order of precedence. So the first sentence in the job description is probably the most important thing that manager is looking for. You need to address each one of those things that are in there. If you don't address them, you are not going to get picked up for that job. I was telling a story before. I was doing a workshop like this. It wasn't this one here, but that's one of the reasons why I started doing this one. I was talking about career development and stuff, and a guy came up there and said, I applied for this job, and I didn't get the job, and the system's not fair. I said, okay. I said, send me your resume and send me the job announcement. So he did, and I looked at the job announcement. The first line under the job description said, must have experience in water management. Looked at the resume, not one word on water management. So I asked him, I said, do you have any experience in water management? Yeah. You did not see this first line up here that said, like there's a connection between those things? And he wondered why he wasn't picked up. Those things are there for a purpose. You need to, I mean, you can't lie, but if you have done those things, you make sure you've addressed them somewhere in your resume. because those are the kind of things that will trigger the review when they're going over a resume. Do not use a generic resume. If you have one that you're trying to apply for 1 million different jobs, you will never get picked up. Again, because what normally happens is they'll ask us as managers, give me 5 things that you want this person to have, or 5 skills, and I'll give them 5 skills. They'll come back and say, okay, there's no applicant that has 5 of 5. There are 3 that have 4 of 5. There are 17 that have 3 of 5, and 35 that have 2 of 5. Where do you want to draw your cut line? And I'll probably say 3 of 5. Give me 20 resumes. And so if you have a generic resume, it is highly unlikely you will hit the specific ones that I'm looking for that job, because you're trying to hit 1 million different jobs. You know, so I think I've had a briefing on the new system, the new USA job system right now. It's where they allow you to have multiple resumes, so you can then target resumes. If you say, budget analyst versus a financial and accounting person, all right, they're different functions, so you might have a slightly different resume for each of those. But if you have a generic resume, it doesn't work, and that's why you're probably not getting picked up for a lot of the jobs. If you've been in the same job for a long period of time, that can be problematic. Again, do you have 10 years of experience, or do you have 1 year experience 10 times? So you want to show, if you've been in the same position for a long period of time, how you have grown in that job, how that job has expanded. You know, before, when I first started out, we only had 20 people in our thing that I was the admin person for. Now we have 45. You know, we have branched out into multiple locations that I have to manage these. Oh, I see where you've grown in that job. I want to see that even though you've been in the same job, that you have grown personally in that job and not just stagnated. So that becomes hard sometimes to figure out, how do I show that I have actually grown in that position? I said, don't copy your job description. I know what your job description says. Why do I want to read it again? Tell me what you did, not what you were supposed to do. That is, to me, most important, because if you copy your job descriptions are boring. They are. I want to know what you did against those skills that you were supposed to show in your job description. Don't tell me processed year-end paperwork. No. Tell me how you did it. How fast did you do it? Was it the best ever? What was the quality of it? That's what I want to see. How you did that work that's out there. Highlight your skills. Otherwise, it's a very, I know if you're a project manager, if you're a geotech so-and-so, I guarantee your manager knows what your job description says. So don't just copy it. It's boring, and it just doesn't tell anybody anything. What we want to see is, what did you actually do? And that, to me, then makes a resume come alive when you do that. And that's what you want. You want your resume to come alive. You want to grip that reader. As I said, if I read those first 1 or 2 sentences and I'm bored, I'm not going to read anymore. I don't have time. And so you want to say, wow, this person is interesting. I want to read more. Again, separating yourself from the crowd. What skills do you have that might be just a little bit different than everybody out there who has the exact same skills that you do? You know, I worked in the Peace Corps for 3 years. I mean, something as simple as that just shows something interesting that's a little bit different than the rest of the people that were out there. You know, so looking for different things that make you unique. It should be logical. I've seen resumes that just go all around, and I have no idea what actually the person did. You know, it should be very logical. I should be able to follow and say, yes, I have a picture of what this person did as I read this job. Short, hard-hitting sentences. You should write like Ernest Hemingway and not James Joyce. You know, Ernest Hemingway, short, hard-hitting sentences. Just hit that reader like a boxer. Whereas I've seen people, I mean, a whole paragraph and no punctuation. Like Molly's soliloquy and James Joyce and just Ulysses over there. Just, you know, try to read it out loud. If you pass out, you know the sentence is too long. Action words. Don't write in the passive voice. Again, you're trying to make this resume come alive. You want this reader to want to read more. I supervised, I orchestrated, I managed, I administered, I did. I use action words that people can relate to. That's what makes your resume really show a picture of what you actually did. Grammar and spelling. I can't tell you, I know Resume sometimes does weird things on there, but you can normally pick that out. You can tell what Resume did and what somebody didn't take the time to look at. And the reason I say that is if this is the most important document in the world and you can't get it right, what do you do with my routine paperwork? It tells me something about you as a person if you haven't taken the time to do a good job in this. So that to me is really important. Make sure, have other people read it, spell check it 1,000,000 times, do all that kind of stuff to make sure that the thing is right. Read it out loud, have others read it. Give it that critique on there. People are in the military. A lot of times is, how do I translate my military job with all its acronyms and everything to something that the civilian sector will understand? So it's a matter of working with some of your colleagues out there. Okay, here's what I do. How can I say this in a language that your people will understand? And that to me, sometimes we tend to use too many acronyms in there, again, because we're used to using that. Well, you never know who's reading it. It might be some GS3 clerk who's doing the first screening, and that person knows nothing about your job. So you got to make it understandable to that person. That's what I try to do. I'll give it to the lowest ranking person I can find. Read this thing. If you can understand it, I feel good. All right. Interviews. I've seen my bonehead share of interviews. People coming in there completely not prepared. Know the organization. I can't tell you how many people come to an interview and really have done no research on the organization. I can tell by the questions they ask me, they have done no research. When I applied for the job with the Corps of Engineers in Los Angeles, again, I had not worked for the Corps before. I got on a website. I researched everything on there. I knew what projects they were working on. I knew what challenges they were having. And when I interviewed, they told me later on, I knew more about the Corps than the people in the Corps. That's pretty sad. That's pretty sad. So I can't tell you how important this is. You can sway a panel in your favor by showing you have done research on the organization. I had a guy come in one time, blew the panel away. He said, I was on your website. I see you're having trouble with sediment management. I have done a lot of work in sediment. I would love to help you solve those problems. Wow. Blew the panel away. First of all, he did research. He realized, he identified a problem that we were having, and he told me he wanted to help solve it. What better introduction can you have in an interview? So, know the organization. As we talked about the organizational culture. What's it like? Who's the commander? What kind of person? All those kinds of things. Do the research on it. Talk to people that might know that organization. Get a good feel for what they are. And be ready to talk about that. Know how the interview is going to be conducted. Sometimes I've seen people do phone interviews in place. Again, because they had so many people that were calling in, they said, to be fair, everybody will call in. Most as you move up, most of the time you can have panel interviews. It's not going to be one-on-one individuals. So be ready for that. Don't be freaking out if you walk in and there are 7 people in front of you. That's to be expected right now. One thing that's been very common these days that I think is actually a very good way of doing interviews is we call the people in at 15 minutes before the interview starts and we give them the questions. Again, an interview should not be a gotcha type situation. I want to know more about you. So by giving the contestant or the candidate the questions, it is a contestant anyway. By giving them the questions in advance, it gives them at least a short opportunity to figure out which examples go best with which question that's being asked. Because I don't know if you've had an interview many times where I'll answer a question with an example and realize 3 questions later that was the perfect example to use. Right. So this way it allows you to kind of organize your thoughts. You can't do research, but it gives you a time to organize your thoughts a little bit. That's very common. You can ask, how's the interview can be conducted? It'll make you feel easy. The interview should not be easy. If it's easy, you're probably boring. I've seen people that are professional interview takers. They've taken some of the interviews that it's almost a formula for them. You don't want that. You want somebody. You should be nervous. I'm a runner. I'm a competitive runner. And I love when you get to that starting line and the adrenaline's pumping out there. That's what a good race is all about. The interview should be the exact same thing. The adrenaline should be pumping. And you should be that because then that excitement will come out. I guarantee you, I don't want to hire a dead fish. If you come in there and you're kind of limp and you kind of, I don't want to hire you. Guaranteed. People want to hire people with life to them. Anticipate questions. I can almost guarantee you, you can figure out 70% of the questions that you're going to be asked. Pretty close. You've got 70% of the questions. Say there are 10 questions. That's a normal interview is about 10 questions, 30 minutes. So you got 3 minutes a question. You know 2 of them that you will always get. A, why do you want the job? Or why are you the best candidate for the job? And the last one is, can you tell me anything else about yourself? So of the 8 questions, there are 2 of them. And I call those Moneyball questions. I probably want to spend more time on those 2 because the first one gives you an opportunity of setting the stage for the panel. The last one gives you a chance to sum up for the panel what you want to tell them. So of the 8 questions, of the 10 questions, you know 2 of them already. If it's a supervisory position, you know you're going to get a question of, tell me about a difficult personnel problem you solved. If it's a technical job, you're probably going to question, give me a technical situation that you solved. Many times a question that comes out quite a bit is, tell me about an experience you've had where you failed, and what did you do about it? Or tell me about something that you were very proud of as a success. Those questions are almost guaranteed to be out there. If it's a supervisory position, I can guarantee it's a question on diversity. So what I normally do is when I'm applying for an interview is I write down the questions that I think they're going to ask me, and I put bullet comments after them. I don't try to memorize them, but I try to say, I might be out riding my bike or something like that, and I'm going over the questions in my head. If they ask the question this way, how would I answer it? And this way, if you feel you're confident about 70% of the questions, just how confident you're going to feel going in there, which means only 30% of the questions might be new to you. It's rare you'll get a question you will know. People aren't trying to get you an interview. That's not the whole purpose of it. And if you do get a question like that, just say you're a fast learner. But for the most part, you're not going to get it. Right. I've done that. Sometimes they throw a curveball just to see what you do. And they say, I have no idea about that question, but I will get back with you on it. I will research it. And I'm a fast learner. Be well rested and alert. Make sure you look sharp. Again, it tells me something about you if you don't. I had an interview many years before. I was working for the community college, and my personnel director sitting next to me. I was hiring an admin assistant. I looked at this lady's resume. I mean, bachelor's in English, master's in sociology. She could type 75 words a minute on a manual typewriter. This lady had like every skill you could possibly want in the world. She came in. She had lipstick on her teeth. And my personnel director said, lipstick on her teeth, crappy paperwork. Meaning, if you can't get your personal appearance right for this most important interview, what do you do in routine stuff? It tells me something about you as a person. So making sure, not that you're wearing a 3-piece suit or anything like that, it's just, do you look appropriate for the interview? And do you have the bearing that you want? Again, it's not just personal appearance, it's that energy, that enthusiasm that the panel wants to see. That's why I say, you should be nervous. You better be nervous. Otherwise, you're going to be boring. Greet the panel with a firm handshake. In some cases, you'll greet just maybe the chairman. Sometimes it'll be the entire thing. Look people in the eye. I mean, you want to go in there and you want to show you're confident in who you are and why you're there. I've seen people go in there looking at the ceiling. What's the old joke about, how do you tell an extrovert engineer? He's the guy looking at the other person's shoes. And so it's a matter of getting out of that habit. You've got to really come in there and you've got to show your presence. Basically, you want to be in charge of the interview in many cases. And so, firm handshake, make eye contact with each person that's out there. Sit erect. When a person asks you a question, and normally what happens is they rotate questions among the panel. When questioner number one asks you a question, you rivet on that person's eyes. You're looking, you're bearing into that person's soul. That person is the most important person in the world at that moment. And you should make that person feel that way. The second reason you do that is you're trying to read that person. As you start answering the questions, body language is very important. There's a book out called How to Read a Person Like a Book. It's really good. It's on body language. How you can tell people's reactions to what you're doing by how they act, how they hold their hands, how they move, how they do those kinds of things. But if you're looking at that person and you're looking at them intently, you're kind of judging, because you'll get, if you're hitting the answer right, you kind of get those nods, that the person is kind of agreeing with what you're saying. If you get, you better change your approach to what you're saying. But again, you're reading that person. Also then you're making that person change. That feels special. You're answering that person's question. And when you're done, kind of scan the crowd. Did I see any vacant looks over there? And then you go from each person that way. The eye contact, that making that person feel important, making that person feel, I got you. I'm answering your question. And again, it's part of your role of you're in charge. You're in charge of your interview. Again, show you've done research on the organization. That is so important. It really will separate you from most of the people that come in there. I can guarantee you, if we're interviewing 8 people, no more than 2 will have done research. So just think, you can separate yourself from the other people by just doing that. And finding a way to bring that into the conversation. As I said, I see on your website you're having challenges with sediment management. Here's how I have done work in that area. I am very proud of that. I really want to help you solve your problems. All right. Don't ever go in there, an interview, and say, this is the perfect job for me. I don't care. I want to know what you're going to do for me, not what this job is going to do for you. Maybe eventually I will care about that. But at that moment, I want to know what you're going to do for me, not that this job is good for you. That's the way I say, tell me how you're going to help my organization. I said, don't be afraid you don't know. Use examples to highlight the questions. Because if you, again, when you're using an example and it's something you are very proud of, your energy, your emotion will come out. A lot of times you'll get a question like, what is your leadership philosophy? That to me is kind of a terrible question, because you can read a leadership philosophy in any book. What I normally do in those situations, I'll answer the question, yes, I believe people come to work every day, want to do a good job. But let me give you an example of how I practice that. And as you tell the story of a problem you may have solved using that philosophy, your energy, your emotion, your enthusiasm will come out. That's what the panel wants to see. So by using examples, it will really bring out everything that's inside of you. Use examples, and I guarantee you your enthusiasm will show a lot more than just answering the questions per se. Again, constantly focus on why you can make it better. This is something I read about in Federal Times. People bringing examples of their work along. Like say, for example, you read on the website that they had problems with sediment management. At the end of the interview, you might say, oh, by the way, I have written a paper on sediment management that kind of germane to your area. I'd like to leave it for you. I mean, they may throw it in the trash can, but they may not. And they may say, wow, again, separating yourself, that is something different. Well, a paper that might be interesting to us. Again, something I read about it in there, and I said, that's not a bad idea. If you're an architect, maybe you bring some drawings along that are very interesting that they may say, ooh, I see this person's skills. Thank the panel. Depart with a firm handshake. Again, you want to show that you are in control of the interview. You know, that you're proud of what you've done, you've accomplished it. What I normally do then is I go to the nearest bar and get a beer. You know. And then do a real assessment. How did I answer the questions? Did any question throw me? You know, how did I think? And just really do that hard assessment on there. And then wait, it's not, if you didn't get the job, it is not bad to ask the chair, can you tell me how I could be better? What areas do you need to work on? So, again, assess your performance and ask for feedback. All right, once you make it, you start moving up over there. What do? You broaden your experience. As I said, that funnel going out there. Mentor others, teach others. Part of it is giving back. The more you give back, the more you build your network, the more you build people that respect you. We were talking about it last night over there. Chief General Van Antwerp had a great way of talking about trust and truth. And it's something that I just believe very, very much in. The little t is truth. The big T is trust. Why is the little t truth? Because the truth changes. You may know the truth to be something on one day. Yes, we have funding for this project, and the next day, the project's cut. You had no idea about it, so you weren't lying. You were telling the truth at the time, but the truth changed. But if people trust you, the capital T, they can deal with the truth changing because they know they can trust you as a person. I had a course a little while ago on a leadership course over there, and one guy from University of Virginia was talking about leadership, and he said, your employees, your staff, are asking 3 questions about you as a leader. First one is, can I trust you? Second is, are you giving your all? And the third is, do you care about me? And you as a leader should be thinking about that all the time. You know, am I answering those 3 questions every day? Am I giving my best? Do my people trust me? And do I care about them? Because that's what they're asking about you all the time. Don't give in to hubris. How many people have read Good to Great? You know, we do always talk about that. Actually, the latest one out, Why the Mighty Fall, to me is a better one. Because it talks about some of the companies that were in Good to Great that went south. You know, look at Toyota. You know, they were on top of the world, and then they gave in to hubris. They started cutting corners. And when they started cutting corners, their quality went down. You know, as individuals, we can do the same thing. I made it to the top. You know, nobody can touch me. You know, like my wife's niece did there with that job. She thought, I'm going to get that job. I don't need to worry about it. That's hubris. One of the guys whose company did not go down, who survived, they asked him, how come your company survived and did well when these other companies went down? The guy said, the CEO of the organization, I come to work every day scared. I'm scared my staff isn't trained enough. I'm scared technology is passing me by. I'm scared my competitors are getting an advantage on me. And because I'm scared every day, I address these things. And that's not giving into hubris. That's addressing your issues every day. These are things that I have to attend to. And that's what we do as leaders. We have to not give in to these kinds of things. Volunteer, getting out there more, strategic communication, doing talks like this. I do talks. I did one last week for the Federal Executive Board of San Francisco for all the federal agencies in Portland. Well, that's strategic communication. I'm also telling the Corps' mission. You know, and that's one of our jobs as senior leaders is to do strategic communication out there. Risk. You will find the higher up you go in the organization, the more you have to risk. Many people are not comfortable with risk. The higher up you go, the more comfortable you got to be with that. They say when you attend the Army War College, the hardest transition for a military officer is from colonel to general. Because as a colonel, you're still down in the base of the operational army. You know, you get down in the trenches with the soldiers. You know, it's things that you know. When you're on the general officer track, you're kind of in a strategic realm. And things aren't as certain. And you're required to make decisions without full information. And a lot of people don't like to do that, especially if you're a typical ISTJ, as most military people are. You know, they want to feel it, touch it, or see it. Well, the higher up you go in your organization, you can't do that. You can't feel it, touch it, or see it all the time. You've got to make decisions with imperfect information, and you've got to become more comfortable with doing that. We talk about the shift from the technical to the operational to the strategic. And that's what you're doing without your career. There are times when maybe in a technical area, what you're doing, that depth of information you're trying to learn early in the career. On the operational level, you're that branch chief. You're still doing technical work, but doing a lot of management work too. Maybe even some strategic, you're sitting on panels. But then once you become the division chief, you're doing very little technical stuff. You're doing a lot of management stuff, but you're doing a lot of strategic stuff along with that. You got to be making those transitions mentally as well as physically as you go through there. Consensus and team building, that becomes important as you become a senior leader. You're not just giving orders. It's more of how do I bring this organization, this group that I have here, all going in the same direction. And strategic communication we talked about already. All right, so you want to be an SES. You don't do it for the money. If you're a GS-15 or even a senior GS-14, you're probably making more money than an SES is. Because you get paid overtime, you get paid weekend, you pay differential. SESs get 40 hours a week, no matter what they do. When I was in Afghanistan, I was the lowest paid person in the organization. My GS-9 admin assistant made more money than I did. So you don't do it for the money. You want to have a passion to be the senior face of the organization. To be out there when the chips are down and the microphone gets thrust out, you got to be the one willing to stand up and get behind that microphone. That's what you want to do if you want to be an SES. Where everybody's looking to you when the chips are down, when the things are going on. They say, all right, you're in charge. What do we do? That's what you want to do. If you have a passion to do that, then pursue this course. Starting your plan early. As I said, I started way too late to do the kind of job that I should have done. You start the GS-12 level, again, because if you want to go to the work college, that's a year out of your life. As many of you know, to get your doctorate degree, that's a year out of your life, not counting your nighttime work. So this has got to be planned. It's a family commitment. And so you got to say, how do I plan this, all these things that I got to check off on my overall plan? Having a strategic perspective over there, you got to be thinking, am I comfortable dealing with ambiguity? Am I comfortable dealing with these strategic issues? You know, some people, I like to solve complex problems that are very set. Okay, that's one thing. Solving strategic problems are a different story. You've got to be comfortable with doing that kind of work. The civilian education system, as I said, the work college, all those required courses that are on there, you've got to be taking those kinds of things. Diverse assignments, we talked about that. Multiple assignments out there, looking for pentathletes, people that can do a lot of different things. Interagency experience, as I said, you know, working with other agencies to show back in 1987, Goldwater-Nichols Act started the joint concept for the military, where things were purple versus Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. You know, they're talking about a Goldwater-Nichols 2 for the civilian side, to make interagency work mandatory. You know, again, because we have to work as a team. You know, we saw it when I was in Afghanistan. Worked very closely with USAID, obviously, but also with Bureau of Energy, Bureau of Transportation, all these other agencies that were working with the government in Afghanistan. Again, the more experience you have working with them, the more you form this better team, the more you have this respect for each other. Excellent public reading, writing, and public speaking skills. You'll be doing a lot of that as you move up in an organization, be an SES. High tolerance for ambiguity. Start your application early. To me, it takes about a year. Not to write the application. Obviously, you can write the application in a week, but it's refining it. You have 5 ECQs that call them executive core qualifications: leading change, leading people, business acumen. I can't remember the other 2 right now, but you have to address them in 2 pages with an example from your background that met an executive level experience. Now, it doesn't mean you cured cancer, but something that showed how you manage change within people, within an organization. But you have 2 pages to do that. So every word has to be the right word. You can't meander around. And you have to address it. There are 4 different areas you got to do. What was it? What happened? What was the issue? Why was it important? What did you do? What was the results? You got to address those 4 things. And one thing that I learned that really probably made my application what it was, somebody just told me, I bolded those questions. So when it said, what was the issue, I bolded what was the issue, and then wrote what the issue was. So they told me at the end, after I got the job, my application was the easiest to read. So it's a matter of what you want to do is you want to make your application as easy to understand that you've addressed all the points required, because they're checking off, did the person do these things? Find a mentor advice, what I said. Somebody gave me that advice, and it was the best piece of advice that I could have possibly had. You know, so Again, find somebody to help you with it, to give you advice, to see if you're interested in doing what you're doing. There we go. So, I know I gave you a lot in a short period of time there. One thing that I do, I'm in the global. If you want me to look at your resume, because I put you through an hour of pain here, you can send it to me and I'll give you a quick critique of it. I'll look at that. I do it for people. I just say, I look it over and say, all right, here's where I see you might need to beef this up. Here's some other areas I might think you might want to work on. Questions now that you may have. Anything you thought? Yes, sir.
You look at a job announcement. You look at a job announcement, and there are misspellings and sentences that are not sentences, and they repeat themselves in the job announcement. What can you say to that?
You mean in the announcement or in the resume?
The advertisement for the job, you know?
Well, I'd say probably that the CPAC did a screw-up job on putting anything out there. You know, they're supposed to be all set. They're almost generic in what they do out there. Right. We're trying to go to more and more generic type job announcements so we can put them out for continuous and open continuous on there. So, I mean, you deal with it. You look at it. You try to address as best you can what you think they meant by what they were saying in there. Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm in contracting, and I was wondering, I like to try to apply for a lot of different certifications that are field-related, but a part of me feels like, am I going to be a jack of all trades but master of none, and just making sure that if I do get those certifications that I'm actually able to perform and it's just not a check-the-block thing that I've got.
You're talking like field force engineering and, facility engineering
yes,
those certifications?
Uh-huh.
No, I think they're mandatory right now. I think the more of those kinds of credentials that you have, the more marketable you are. Now, I would like to believe that you have the experience also that goes behind those things. But to me, that is very, very important, especially right now. If you have level 3 certification, whether it's in facility engineering or just level 3 for DWEA certification, I mean, we need people with those skills. We're crying for them right now. And contracting right now is an area that, to me, is wide open. You know, every agency is looking for contracting personnel. In fact, most people are stealing from us because they're higher graded. Their journeymans are 13s and not 12s. You know, so I think I would go after as many certifications as I can in that area. But again, you have to the training, you have the actual experience to back it up too. Yes, sir.
I understand what you were talking about, and it sounds very good. You know, all the things here, a lot of stuff I hadn't heard before. And mentioning contracting, what do you do when you have done all the prerequisites? You know, you've got the education, you've got the training, and things of that nature. And then when you're waiting on a job, you've been waiting for that job over 20 years, and contractors come in, and they didn't get that job. So what do you do?
I mean, a contractor came in, they brought in a contractor
They brought
to
in
do
a
it?
contractor 3 times, and you've been sitting there for 20 plus years, and you've done all the prerequisites. Yeah. What do you do?
How we mix our workforce sometimes, you know, is a management decision on that. You know, a lot of times if we think that work may change, we tend to go to contractors so we don't hire a civilian into a position because then you make a long-term commitment to that individual, whereas a contractor you can let go. I mean, we're talking about contracting or contracting like she was talking about?
I'm talking about a contractor.
Oh, contractor.
I'm in a different, kind of a different position. I'm in security.
Okay, okay.
And I've been in security for 20 plus years.
Right. We know the whole big push under the Bush administration was to contract out. And so basically the emphasis that was put out there is if it's not inherently governmental, you should outsource it. And so we tended to do that a lot. Now under the current administration, it's more what can you bring back inside again. So it's one of those things that it's the whim of the administration of how they're looking at something. Is it more cost effective to have government employees do it, or is it more effective for the contractor to do it? And that's just normally a management decision on that. And sometimes it's a risk we take.
But now those contractors are permanent government employees.
They are.
Yes.
Usually they're.
No, they've been switched over.
Oh.
They worked as a contractor for so many years, and now they're government employees. They've been made permanent in that position.
I can't answer that one because I just don't understand that one.
Well, folks, yeah, one more question real quick, and Jim's got a tour he's got to get on too. So.
Can I ask about the mentorship? You mentioned that.
Right.
How that's helped you in your career, how you found mentorship?
Actually, no one's ever mentored me. That's why I made all bonehead mistakes. No, and I really, absolutely. In fact, I don't think I've had a supervisor that's ever even spoken to me. But what I do encourage people to look for mentors. Most people are honored if I was a senior person that you'd say, I would like you to be a mentor to me, just so I could talk to sometimes. It should not be somebody in your normal chain of command. It should be somebody kind of outside your chain of command who can give a kind of dispassionate look as to what your career is. You know, when you say, you know, I'm thinking of applying for this job, what do you think? And that person can say, well, all right, here are the pros and cons of that. You know, I think that's a good location. You're going to get good thing over. You're going to get good opportunity to be seen by people over here. It's going to be a challenging job. You got a hard boss over there. You know, to give you kind of things to look at. That's what you want in a mentor. Not that they tell you, well, do this, do that. You know, it's that they give you, they look at your option and say, here's what I see for that for you. And then you make a decision on that. And most people around, like, you know, a Dave or a Reed or whomever, say, could I just talk to you about, you know, these challenges that I'm looking at right now? Most people are honored when you do that. Now, there is formal mentorship where you sign contracts, but most people want more informal stuff. Now, can I call you when I have a question in these areas?
Folks, wasn't this great? Thank you. I think we're going to wear Jim out up here, but Jim, thank you so much for coming to do this. You could tell we really needed to hear this, and we look forward to having you back again and talk to us some more, perhaps downrange. But he's on email, he's on Outlook, okay, Hearn.
Yeah,
you just
Hearn.
heard him. He'll talk to you.
Division.
So thank you so much, Jim, and thank all of you for coming today. Appreciate it very much. Excellent, wonderful, yeah, super.